Okay, so here we start basically building these detailed Microsoft project plan or a Jira project plan or any other software management tool. If your company is using any other tool, normally there are maximum number of companies who still use Microsoft project as a basic project plan development. Here we use something called Gantt chart, where we have a scope, the task name, activity name, the resource name, and we normally apply a schedule to that, and automatically it will calculate cost for us. In Microsoft project, you can add asset cost, licensing cost, the raw material cost, as well as the machine procurement cost, as well as human resources cost. So all these things gives us an actual project cost for a given hour, for a given day, and so on and so forth. So we keep tracking our project cost against our budget planning, against our train planning, and so on and so forth. And then we have a procurement planning, where we normally try to procure our elements wherever we require proactively. Each organizations have a different way of procurement processes. You need to intimate the procurement manager with your requirement documents or not, with the actual required material, required machines, as we discuss in our typical project management example, like me working as a project manager for GuruSchools and doing a project for State Farm. There I normally procure a third party component called biometric scanner or ID scanner, which required to be fitted at a organization's door, State Farm's doors, to basically collect the attendance. And this way we normally plan this procurement proactively, so that I'll receive the instrument before actually the planned task, at least a day before the planned task. Again, this depends on the perishability of your instrument. As far as biometric is considered, we don't have to worry about perishability, because the aging of that instrument is quite negligible even over the years, and so on and so forth. Then we have we do quality planning and organizational planning also. Quality planning in the sense, build this knowledge management process over the time. If you're doing anything better, share with other project management teams. If other project management teams are doing something better than you, you normally try to accept those policies and procedure to make your project more efficient, more lean management. In the sense, we try to reduce costs throughout our project management processes. Then organizational planning, in terms of team building, in terms of building the hierarchy among your projects, and even having an influence on the external factors as well. In terms of controlling process group, again, controlling and executing process groups are continuous process group. You keep doing these things in terms of having better control on a project and having better execution in terms of efficiency, lean cost management, and so on and so forth. The policies and processes adopted by your organization. First, controlling process group, in terms of understanding the scope, change control, schedule control, cost control, risk response control, and quality control. So all these controls basically gives us a clear idea of how you can manage the project effectively, how you can manage the project in terms of micromanagement. You are the leader, you are the first time leader as far as project management goes, right? So here we are trying to address basically these 5 nook and corners as far as project management knowledge areas goes. In executing, we do information distribution in terms of communication management, team development in terms of resource management, quality assurance in terms of testing, the validation, verification, sort of these things, scope verification in terms of trying to build a complete concise scope and giving to the client what actually it needs, rather than keep giving value add and spending some extra resources. And then we have a contract administration in terms of how do you manage the SLA, how do you manage the overall penalty clauses throughout your project execution. And then we have actual execution in terms of actually building whatever we have committed to build in terms of our project planning. And the last process group, fifth process group, is closing process group. Here we try to understand how we are doing in terms of train in executing process group, and then if the things are not really looking up, we have a kind of skewed profitability or something, we might close the project prematurely. But the way best project management processes looks at it, it's a learning experience. and we try to collect those learning in our knowledge management. And that's how these 5 process groups really interact with each other in terms of the scope change control, in terms of initiating, planning, controlling, executing, and closing process group. Am I right? Whatever we have discussed, anybody have any confusion, any difficulties in understanding this 5 process group, 49 5 process group and 49 processes within them?
Yes, sir. Sir, I have a question.
Please go ahead, ma'am.
Suppose during all this management process, suppose there is some out of scope activities are there which we have to deal, and suppose any unexpected risk has happened is there. So how do we deal with those situations?
We have something called change control board. It's a committee of one member or might be a couple of members depending upon your organization thought processes. We normally supply any change via this change control board. Here we have estimators, we have good task scheduler built into this team, which basically checks for any change request coming via client and try to prioritize it in a current phase, current sprint, next phase, depending upon the length and breadth of those change requests. Now there could be a very small change request, kind of 10-15 minutes type of efforts, then we might include it in a current sprint as well, just to make sure client business doesn't get disturbed by our development. Well, we might have planned earlier, but the client business priority do change sometimes, right? So for all such change requests, we have a change control board who supervises this change, who re-estimates this change, and then give to the project manager, trying to get the best out of this change request. We might charge this change request, we might bill this change request additionally to the client. This is for the change request or a scope change kind of scenario. Does that make sense, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And what was the second question? No. What was the second question?
Yeah, second question again similar. Any unexpected risk is there? So
Right.
how do we tackle that?
Right. In risk management knowledge area, we have discussed about re-updating the risk register, which is a risk of list, periodically, mostly daily or at least weekly. With the team, you might review the risk register once a day during the daily stand-up meet, scrum meet, or something like that. Or you might have a weekly risk review where you keep adding risk, you keep checking the impact score, impact cost, the resource responsible, the priority and scenario of the risk in that risk register, which is normally an Excel sheet. Again, depending upon your organizations, you might have a web page as well. So here we try to keep track of these risks on almost a daily basis. If not daily, then at least once a week basis, where we normally call a risk review. And then we might have risk audits once a week or once in a 2 week, depending upon your organizational policies and processes. We adopt those risk review and risk audit continuously to make sure we don't miss any risk. And you normally apply all the risks which are basically applied by the previous similar projects, so that you have a ready-made risk register with you. You don't start from zero, you start from 80% and above, something like that. Okay, so this way we keep reviewing this risk register on almost a daily, weekly, or bi-weekly basis, depending upon the policy and procedure. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Most welcome, no problem. Let's move on. Okay, now let's quickly try to understand or revisit the thought process of project management methodology. And then we'll try to understand how these two are correlated, how these two can basically give you the best possible output whenever you're trying to manage a project. In a waterfall, it's a sequential execution. So unless and until requirements are complete, you can't go to the design. And unless and until design is complete, you can't go to the development. Well, you can have development and testing in parallel. That's what we learn over the years. And then we have a maintenance, warranty, support, whatever phases you want to add to this. There could be a 5-step waterfall, there could be 8-step waterfall, depending upon the thought process. You might include number of stages, or there could be one stage which can include a couple of these things. So we normally have development and testing, and then we have deployment or release and so on and so forth. Again, the names are not important. The understanding of the process, like waterfall normally has one phase, then another phase. Until one phase is executed, you don't move to the other phase. So there are least possible overlaps in waterfall. Again, this is a really sturdy development methodology where you don't go back. There's no iteration in search in waterfall. In few companies, they normally adopted these waterfall with some iterative thought process, like development, testing, running in parallel, running again and again, and so on and so forth. So this way, again, depending upon the adoption of your organizations, we normally try to understand waterfall. But the basic waterfall talks about one phase after another, and so on and so forth. And after the last phase, then only you can go to the first phase. So in waterfall, whenever there are changes in requirement, you can't go back in development and testing kind of scenario. That's the basic disadvantage of a waterfall. The main advantage is fully defined. When you have a complete concrete requirement with you, you normally choose this methodology. Again, there are good number of organizations like US military, NASA, and various other project management methodology project companies. They are using waterfall as their overall execution project management methodology even today as well. Okay, please have a look at okay, give me yeah please have a look at recordings from number 21 to 25 dated 30th August till 9th November, 30th October till 9th November. These are, I think, 5-6 recording. Please have a look at this thing to understand this methodology we have discussed in depth, right? And here we have waterfall explained in terms of textual thought process, where we'll try to understand how this waterfall is really helping us out to achieve the best possible development. Okay, deployment. Once functional and non-functional testing is done, the product is deployed. Sorry. Okay, here we have requirement gathering and analysis, where we collect all possible requirements to the system to be developed and captured in a phase and documented requirement specification document. And then we have a system design starts after requirement. Whenever you're designing a system, you don't go back to the requirement and change any requirement. Waterfall is not flexible. It's a concrete development methodology, as we normally call it. And so the other methodology descriptions, right? And then let's have a quick look at waterfall advantages versus disadvantages. Here, major disadvantages of waterfall model are: no working software is produced until the late during life cycle. So whenever you start development, in those phase only you start getting a look at developed software. Prior to that, you don't normally do any POC, proof of concept. Well, there can be organizations who have a POC with waterfall model, but there are far and few. But normally you have waterfall methodology adopted whenever you have a concrete requirements with you, and which are normally not going to change. And that's why this is there are very far and few projects which normally go with waterfall methodology. But this is one of the most oldest management methodologies we have followed over almost last 60-70 years. Some of the organizations, they have really good favorite waterfall, and they do use these management methodologies. High amount of risk and uncertainty, because you gather the requirement, and if the requirements are not really sturdy enough, if they are keep changing, then you run into very high risk of redeveloping or replanning these things, and there are lots of uncertainty. This is not a good model for complex and object-oriented project. What is complex? Complex in the scenario, a changing scenario. We are trying to align with the business management. We are trying to understand the business scenario change, and we are trying to adopt them, or rather here you try to ignore them in a way. Okay, example, what type of projects use waterfall? Right, as I discussed, wherever the requirements are fully and final. Let's say you are developing a product. You are developing a new smartphone. The requirement, if they are finalized, you have already decided the strategy in terms of screen resolution, Android versions, the chipset, the speakers, and blah 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 things. Then it's fine to go with waterfall. If the project is a shorter, let's say 1 month time, or max to max 3 months time, then waterfall is good. In terms of product development, you normally do it with the robotics or automated machines. So in terms of product development, like new Android phone development, we might go with the waterfall. And whenever we complete, whenever we through with them, we are start pushing it to market, if you find any change, you rerun the build with the change or adopted thing. So you are reiterating the complete waterfall process rather than a phase of iteration. We will look at the iteration and then we'll understand in depth. And that's why very few of the product management companies might use waterfall. In US military, if they are developing a product like a new gun, they already keep collecting requirements for ages together or months together, years together, and they go into the development with all those concrete development. Till you have the gun in your hand, you might not go and change anything in terms of that gun specification or something like that. So these are the kind of example of waterfall methodologies. It's a poor model for long and ongoing projects. So if you have very short project with a defined requirements, then you might go for the waterfall development. Not suitable for the projects where the requirements are at a moderate or high risk of changing. If there are changes to be accepted, we might not go with the waterfall. It's difficult to measure progress within stage. As the stage gets completed, you can completely shift the milestone as in completed or not. But in between, you don't get the actual efficiency measures. Adjusting scope during life cycle that can end a project. So normally waterfall projects are very sturdy in terms of their defined policy and processes. They don't change. So unless and until you end the waterfall cycle, there is no adjustment inside. Integration is done on big bang at the very end, which doesn't allow identifying any new technology or a business bottleneck or any changes early. So this is a complete like kind of waterfall. You can't reverse the water, right? That's why the name given as in waterfall. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, sir. Got it.
Thank you. Then an iterative model. After waterfall, this was in late 1990s. We thought like, okay, let's change the management methodology. Let's try to make it a bit flexible. So how we can do? You normally have a requirements gather and then you plan the team in parallel. These are basically started with a bigger project. So you might have 3 different teams working on 3 different parts of your project. So first, like if you talk about the gun project, the first team can build the basic, gun frame. The second team can basically design and implement the trigger as per the specification given by the gun body team. The third might build the bullets, which are basically kind of independent development of the other two, and or rather which is connected in a way so that you have a specification of a gun chamber size and everything, and then you can build those bullets. But yes, this is not going to change because you're given the design to these 3 different teams to build a gun together, and they will implement or will assemble this gun for us, and then we'll try to basically understand how the gun's efficiency can be adopted in the next phase or next iterative model. So this was kind of early iterative model designing. Okay, we have discussed this thing in our recording. I'll share this PPT so you can go through this repetitive iterative developments as well, and as and when we grow, how we adopt better iterative models. Okay, now let's try to talk about advantages of iterative SDLC. These are software development life cycle. So whenever somebody asks you what is SDLC, you need to explain Agile, Scrum, you need to explain Waterfall, depending upon the policy and processes. More than 85% of the project management methodologies use Agile Scrum. Okay, Agile Scrum is a iterative SDLCs. Let's try to understand the early stages of iterative SDLC, how they have helped us. Some working functionality can be deployed quickly early in the life cycle. Like we discussed in this, gun factory sort of stuff, the ammunition can be obtained really fast within weeks time because you have that iron barrel or some composite material barrel, the gun head, and the overall explosive powder can be crunched inside. So you might have a kind of lathe machine where you build these ammunition for your gun, which can be created very quickly, and you can display these things to your client saying, hey, how does it look? Is it according to your thought process or something like that? So that's why some working functionality can be developed very quickly early in the life cycle. Results are obtained early and periodically. Parallel developments can be planned. Like we seen, we can have a parallel development plan. Progress can be measured in terms of even within the execution, so that I can check, hey, how much gun frame coming up. He say, yeah, we have got the basic barrel designed. Now we are working on the spring mechanism or trying to include that a trigger mechanism in our frame, and so on and so forth. The progress can be measured, less costly to change the scope in case we desire we have the client might guide us, no, this trigger might look good with this type of mechanism and something like that. So we can adapt to the changes, we can change the scope and adapt to the changes requirement with the client. Of course, they can cost a bit to the client, but again, then you can basically discuss this with the client as the changes to be accepted and the overall revenue sharing of it. Then we have testing and debugging. Similar on a smaller iteration is easy because all these iterations, they work in independence, and every resources also can be shared across. The overall problems or challenges can be resolved with the discussion with the team and trying to understand how this iteration can be managed in terms of the milestone completed for a typical execution. Like we can create the ammunition of that gun very quickly within a day's time or something like that. If you have the right raw material with you, then it's easier to manage risk because we can adapt to the changes. We can basically change the processes accordingly to adapt to the risk or to avoid the risk coming in your way in a progressive manner. With every increment, the operational products is delivered. So the client can't come to us and saying, oh, this is not according to my thought process. But we are showing to you, right? Every week, every bi-weekly, we are sharing the product with the client. So client is also, getting the details in terms of how we are building it. The client can basically suggest any changes from whatever we have completed in terms of requirement, in terms of product building, and so on and so forth. So depending upon these processes, iterative is really a flexible SDLC processes. Let me move ahead. Then it came the Agile project management methodology. This was in late 1990s where we came up with a good, or rather the best project management methodology called Agile project management methodology. Here, the SDLC can be planning, requirement analysis, design, and then construction, unit testing, coding and unit testing, and then last is acceptance testing. Okay, here we are basically building a flexible model where we are collaborating with the client on almost daily basis, and this way we try to build the working product every week with a kind of iteration called sprint. In the iteration, we do a certain sort of requirement gathering, certain sort of design changes, coding and testing running in parallel, and then we have acceptance testing also going in the iteration, so that whenever client accept this newly devised product, project, solution, support, he or she can suggest you any changes as per his thought process, as per his this business requirement, and so we can make it in next iteration, and that product can be marked as a completed, delivered, adopted, accepted kind of scenario. So this way we are closely working with the client on almost daily basis, and this is how the overall iterative process looks even as in today. So we have iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3. Iteration 1 can be anything between 3 days to a month's time. So you can have one sprint in terms of a 3-day sprint, or the max 1 month sprint. Again, these are the thumb rules. Some organizations, depending upon thought process, they can have a bigger iteration. So here I have a planning, requirement analysis, design, building, testing, and deployment. And then in the next iteration, I might adapt to the changes suggested by the client and do the next iteration, which is more his business requirement, his actual fitment to the need kind of scenario, and so on and so forth. I might have a third iteration. This way I can build as many iterations as want, depending upon the project at hand. In terms of that enhancing attendance management solution, I can build an iteration like a deployment of biometric at St. Louis office, one iteration, at Chicago office, next iteration, at Madrid office, Spain Madrid office, another iteration, and so on and so forth. So this way I can have the iterations built and deployed in a repetitive collaborative manner, and that's how we normally get a working software, working solution, working project in a iterative way, in a what can say repeated steps throughout your project progress. So you are working collaboratively, you are working closely with the client to understand how we can execute these things repeatedly again and again, with closely working with the client or getting the client feedback on almost every step of the world. Anybody any questions on iterative development?
No,
Again,
sir.
I'm going a bit faster because we have already developed these things at a length. Okay, so please have a look at those recording. I'll share this PPT with you so you can understand these things, right? Now, agile project method, repeating or what? Yes, sorry. Yeah, agile versus traditional SDLC. Traditional in the sense the waterfall. So normally this is a quite common questions the interviewer asked. What is the difference between waterfall and agile? Do anybody wants to try these? Try to answer this question.
Sir, agile, I think, I mean, it means that as and when in the project planning, as the project is on, whatever the changes are, you go back and you reiterate like your design solutions or like whatever the solution is, versus the waterfall is like you start with a proper project plan. It is like you are kind of thinking ahead that the like this is how whatever the I'll give you like just an example of designing a solution for a software. So like this is how the design should be, this will be the requirements of the users and all, and once all that is all that requirements and everything has been gathered and everybody has agreed upon, all the stakeholders and everything, and then the work on that project takes place. After that, if there is any issue, and after that when it goes into the testing, if there is any issue or it is not up to the mark, then they have to go back and I think go back through the whole cycle again. Versus in agile, at each step you're doing the testing and you're making sure that or however the project has been planned, or whatever the requirements have been gathered for the users by the users, like on each step you're designing it in parts and then you are testing it with the users, and then whatever the issues are depending upon the results, then again you are reiterating your designs and then moving forward.
Yeah, sure, perfectly. You explained quite right. Only there are a couple of challenges in terms of using word like proper planning. You normally, try to use the word from what you can say, which are more suitable to the management thought process. Proper planning is a kind of, a skew word or not so correctly fit, right? Everything what we do, we try to do it properly, right? Be it a waterfall, be it agile, but the adaptability is basically with a different set of project executions. Be it a well-defined executions, you might go with a waterfall. Be it with a flexible project project management methodology, you go with agile and something like that. So what I would really suggest, take a time, build a script, because this is the frequently asked questions in the interview. So whenever you're trying to clear this interview, have a script for such questions. There are couple of questions we normally build a script for. First is like, tell me about yourself. So you normally what you do, you build a script in terms of what is the normal way of answering tell me about yourself in an interview. There are YouTube videos available on our knowledge sheet, the shared Google sheet, about such questions as well. So have a look at those YouTube links as well. So where you normally try to answer, I'm Ravindra, I'm based of St. Louis, Missouri. I'm working in project management methodology for the last 21 years. being a project manager have taught me a great leadership skills, negotiation skills, the decision making skill based on those gathered data requirement and all those things, and so on and so forth. You try to talk about your education, try to talk about your what makes you a leader, what makes you a good project manager, and so on and so forth. The second and the most important question is, tell me about your current work. So me, Ravindra, working as a project manager, senior project manager at Guru School, here, your location remotely. And then I'm working with this thing for so many years. I'm closely working with the client, depending upon the domain you choose. If you choose banking domain, and if you are in New York, New Jersey area, you can say I'm working with ICICI Bank as a project manager, contractor project manager, and there I'm handling around 3-4 projects. You can name a projects like that. You need to build this script as well, where we are trying to basically answer or trying to win the trust of the interviewer in a progressive manner. Similarly, whenever, and this is the also one of the most repeated question, tell me the difference between waterfall and agile, or definite project management methodology with a versus flexible project management methodology, and you should be able to explain these things. Your answer was really concise, ma'am. Thanks. It's really great. Only we need to choose to use those words, what I can say, carefully, because they might, means if there's an interviewer, skilled interviewer, he'll say, tell me what you mean by proper project management. Now this is, you are landing in a soup, right? You can understand, right, what I'm trying to say, ma'am?
Yeah.
So we need to basically stay away from such words, because then the interview basically will lead to a different track altogether, and then it's basically kind of satisfying the ego scenario. So let's not step into such scenario. That's why I would really suggest try to build a script for all those repetitive questions. Okay. And this is if you go through those RRRP sessions, resume preparatory sessions, even the HR will guide you how you can build or how you can use better words for these question and answers.
So, sir, the HR has the list of the questions for this program, right?
They
So,
have the
like, will it be different, like if you're applying for BA role versus, like, say for example, the product owner role, will the questions be different? Right?
Yeah, there are different questions, because these are separate roles, right? See,
Yeah.
when you talk about a project manager, he normally handles 1 or 2 projects. Nowadays, project teams are really smaller, like 10-member team or 12 or max 50-member team. In good old days, like a decade back, we might used to have a team of 40 as well. But nowadays, it's against our thought process, against the best practices. So we normally go with 10 to 12 team. If the project management team, let's say 8 people team, you might get 16 2 projects working under your leadership. So these 2 projects basically kind of 8 resources or 10 resources, something like that. As far as psychological thought process, a person can manage up to 20 resources very effectively. He or she knows their name and so on and so forth. They can interact on daily basis. That's why normally in today's world we have 1 or 2 projects handled by a project manager. Again, depending upon your organizational discipline and all, you normally get to have 1 project or max to max 2 projects. Now here what we do, basically we try to understand how we can manage these things effectively, and depending upon your requirement, their evolutions, the change of requirements, we adopt to any SDLC as we have discussed, and that's how we normally progress. I forgot your question. What was the question here? Sorry.
No, sir, like just like the list of questions are different for
Oh, right.
BM versus product owner versus
Right.
PM.
In terms of product owner, he's a visionary. He creates this vision for a given product, project, solution, support. So he normally stick with just single project, and he don't care whatever you do with other projects, whatever you do rest of the day. But so whenever you normally work with these roles, they have some specified roles and responsibility. That's why business analysts are basically a kind of what I'll say, very freshers job. If you are starting in IT, domain, then business analyst, which really looks good, but they pay you less, anything between 80 to 110K per year. If you look at project manager, they can easily pay anything above 130K till 200K. Product owner, again, similar lines, 120K to 150, 160K. So the pay scale differs, the roles and responsibility differs, the stress level differs, and so on and so forth. Even the career progression. The career progression of project manager being a kind of start of a leadership positions, you move the hierarchy quite quickly if you can perform well. In case of business analyst, well, they might kind of progress well, but overall, as far as the designation or salary increment, they are much lesser than a project manager. So it's like business analyst, then we have product owner, then we have project manager. Project managers are a highly paying job. They are very critical job. So that's why nobody let go the project manager, even if there is a financial crunch. You might not get paid for a month or two, but still they will retain the project manager because of the knowledge you carry of a given project product solution support services. Does that make sense, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Again,
So like, sir, just
go
like,
ahead.
because I have a background as a UX designer.
Right.
So which do you think which roles is more suitable for me? Because I was actually eyeing for BA and PO. I was not eyeing much on PM role, but BA, because I already, as a user experience designer, I already have an experience of gathering user requirements and things like that.
Right.
And PO, because I have closely worked with a product
Owner, right.
in a product life cycle process. So that is why like a product specialist or a product owner, and things like that. Um,
So I think,
so
yeah, very, 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 reasonable choice, no problem. And we'll start a business analyst in, I think, a couple of weeks. So don't worry on that part, and we'll get started as far as the business analysis, role requirements and role tools use and everything. Okay. How can I share the sample interview questions with us? Yes, you can ask Roshan, or there's a Google shared sheet, right? There are some additional, okay, let me open that Google sheet and I'll guide you. We have already collected some question and answers in terms of, give me a minute. Yes, this is our Excel sheet, right? So we have overview. So these are, different videos in terms of different, products we can use with business analysis, project management. This is the current recording, which, we are basically executing. We are at our, how much? This is our 49th workshop, basically, where we were discussing project management methodology adoptions with the, in comparison with the knowledge area. And then these are the older recordings. Then we have another older recording. Now this is YouTube reference learning. Here you might find interview help as well. No, it's not there. Sheet 12, what this talks about. Okay, mock interview. Oh, is this somebody? Oh. Okay, somebody filled around this sheet, I believe. Okay, you can get it from your what you can say, HR coordinator, and I'll add some a kind of interview mock Q&A here. Basically, there's a sheet for mock interview videos. I'll add some links here so that you can go through these question and answer YouTube videos for your building better better prepared for these interviews. Okay, and check with your HR coordinator as well. Anything else I can help you with on these? This is our typical BA, PM, SIF, Scale, Agile, Product Owner training question and answer sheet. I believe everybody have access to this sheet as of now.
Sir, this is Purnima.
Hi, Purnima. Please go ahead, ma'am.
I have recently joined
Oh, sorry.
the
Sorry,
course,
extremely sorry, I missed
and
it, ma'am.
No problem, sir. So I do not have access to any of the links as of
Okay.
now.
Could you do one thing? Could you paste your Google email ID in our normal WhatsApp group? I'll add to this,
Yeah.
sharing thing. Okay.
Sure, sure.
After our
Thank you
session,
so
and
much.
you'll get access. No problem. This is our normal process, and pardon me. Do you go by Sanvi or do you go by other name, ma'am?
No. I go by Purnima, sir. Actually, I logged in through my daughter's
No problem.
email,
Thank
I
you, thank
believe.
you. If you
Yeah.
could change, that will be really great help, because I
Yeah,
normally
yeah,
refer
yeah.
to these things. No problem, no problem.
Yeah, yes, yeah, I understand. But after
No,
I
no worries.
signed in, I saw it.
Yeah, no problem,
Okay.
ma'am. And this thing do happens because everybody have their way of doing this thing. So we just try to share the best possible way or the easiest possible way to live life. That's how I
Definitely,
like
sir.
to say it. Okay, so please don't worry, don't take it
Yeah.
otherwise. It's just a simple
Yep.
request, humble request, so that it's easier for
Yeah.
us. Okay, no problem.
I understand. Yeah.
No
Thank
problem.
you, sir.
Most welcome. I'll add something over here, and you'll get your help from HR coordinator as well. Okay. So we'll try to build our knowledge base the best possible way, the easiest possible way, and we'll try to basically progressively learn and progressively try to clear these obstacles for interview. Okay. Let me take back to our presentation again.
Sir, one question.
Please go ahead, ma'am. No problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I attended that RRP session, and I was working with Dev sir. So it is like LinkedIn connection we have to make. So unless and until I make 500 connections, I can't attend any interview. Is it like that?
No, ma'am. See, it's a process, right? See, learning is also our repetitive process. You can't say I'll stop learning because I have completed. You never say you completed your learning. Could you understand my thought process, ma'am?
Oh no,
Even
no. I'm asking about LinkedIn connections.
yeah, I'll come to that. I'll come to that. See, learning, even making a good tea is a process. You keep improving, right? This much tea powder is better, that much tea powder is better. Similarly, even in life, as a business analyst, you keep learning in a progressive manner. So you never say, I'll stop learning tomorrow. The thing is to that, there are a couple of, what you can say, subsidiary things which go on in parallel, like LinkedIn building. So here, what we normally do, as a normally IT person working in IT for 5-6 years, you normally should have 500 plus more connection. The way LinkedIn works, if you have 500 plus more connection, like 501, they will not show you number of connections. So that way, if once you cross that limit, you're good to go in terms of the recruiters can believe you are working with IT for so many years. And that's why that's a kind of subsidiary, I think evidence, subsidiary proof we need to make sure you are in IT for so many years. That's a kind of, a weird thought process or a weird checks and balances these recruiters do. See, to land an interview, you need to make sure your resume is processed by these recruiters, right? Or submitted by these recruiters. For these, there are certain predefined conditions, like you should have a LinkedIn 500 connections. And that's why, please don't worry, check with your recruiter, create a message, and you might have seen a couple of messages in our group saying, please connect with me. I'm trying to build my connections. So try to build connections, and then in return, you can request to get connected with you as well. Does that make sense, ma'am?
Yes. I'm in process of that only. Actually, I created the account and I dropped message also today.
Perfect, ma'am. Similarly, in parallel, start building your profile as suggested by them. So they have a particular template format, a name, city, zip, and so on and so forth. They might, the HR coordinator might have shared with you some sample resume, right? So work on
Yes,
those.
sir. Yes, sir. That is also reviewed by Dev sir.
Oh,
One second is done. Yeah.
Once the connection are okay, they'll start marketing you, because then they have certain these steps, checks and balances, the way American recruiters works. And I think they are the best persons to explain those thought process than me. Whatever I know, I normally share with you in terms of how we can best utilize these preconceptions, assumptions, normally assumed by these recruiters. And that's why we need to clear those barriers one step at a time.
Okay. Got it, sir. Thank you.
Most welcome, ma'am. No problem.
So
Yeah,
I
go
have
ahead.
one quick question.
No
Sir,
problem.
so like straight away, like for this, like in the interview, like you apply for a project management role, or do you like say, for example, if project management, if you're considering to apply there, or like you apply from, you become a project coordinator first and then a project manager?
Again, see, uh, this is, a kind of difficult question to ask because it works on both way. Sometimes we have seen a person who is entering in IT field is normally started working as a project manager. There, it's a basically a bit of hardship there. But when you normally graduate from, let's say, business analyst to assistant project manager to project manager, which is much gradual, the stress level are really, at a very smaller level, and which can be easily managed by a person. But again, when it comes to, opportunity you can get, if you can get really best opportunity, let's try for that. That's what I will say. And rather than stuck in our own isolated chamber, let's start fighting. Let's start what I can say, attending this interview, learn while attending this interview, and so on and so forth. And you can decide. See, these interviews are independent, be it a project manager interview, be it a business analyst interview. The better you can perform in any of such interview, you are basically well fit for that role, the way I feel it. They are not mutually exclusive most of the time. There are bit of overlap, be it a business analyst, project manager, product owner. See, you are working for a client or with the client. In here, we will try to understand what's the best way to get the things done. So depending upon business analysts, they normally work on a requirement, list of requirement, priority scenario. For a project manager, you normally work with the team as a leader. You try to build this plan, review plan every day after day. As a product owner, you generate this visionary idea and try to guide others in terms of if they are doing something conflicting to those basic idea, basic project, thought process. And this is how we normally have these three different role. And then there are role in between, like a assistant project manager or a kind of scrum master, which is kind of a kind of mix and match of these roles. So there are 5 roles you can try for: business analyst,
Okay.
scrum master, assistant project manager, and a product owner. And now when you come to Scrum Master, there is something called safe or skilled Agile Scrum Master, which are much senior than a normal Scrum Master. But again, if you have working as a Scrum Master, you might try for Agile, skilled Agile Scrum Master. We are going to learn Agile skilled Agile as our next training capsule. And then we'll try to understand how the Agile and scale Agile differs in a progressive manner. What are the questions for a typical Scrum Master, and what are the questions for scaled Agile Scrum Master, and so on so forth. So don't worry, try it out. Unless and until you try, you don't get the answer of the fitment, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so
So
try to
like in a organization, like the gradual process in towards like towards having a career journey is like from say from
if
BA to
yes.
assistant project manager, or is it like BA to product specialist, product owner, assistant project manager, and then project manager? How is that how is the growth, in which way is it defined?
Yeah, I've seen a BA move to a product owner, scrum master role very easily. I've
Okay.
seen the BA to move to the product manager, project manager role as well. So again,
Okay.
there are
Okay.
depending upon the organization you join in, there are some cultures, there are some fitment parameters they do check. Again,
Okay.
you need to understand whenever you join an organization, you need to understand those parameters. Or you can directly start with something like project manager role, where you normally learn on the job as well. And we Indians are really flexible in terms of learning, and that's
Yes,
why
sir.
even starting as a project manager can be a really good start. Don't worry on that part. That's what I'm saying. Try to check your personality. Where do you fit well? Rather than me telling you, you study and you guide us how we can help in terms of which role do you think it fits to you. My 2 cents, you can try giving interview for these different roles and then zero down on one target for you. And again,
Okay.
there are strategies like how much salary do I want, how early I want to start. If you want to start really early, you can start on business analyst interview as of now as well. But yes, you need to work on those, resumes, you need to work on those interview question and answer and everything. That's fine. But you can start applying as of today, whenever you have your profile resume ready. And that's what I suggest. And start giving interviews so that we learn what the client wants, how I'm not, where are the shortcomings in terms of me giving that or accepting that role, right? And that's a kind of learning of every person's. We might revise certain thing in depth, we might ignore certain thing because we have understood that thing. So this way it's a kind of mix and match for our progression.
Yeah.
Okay,
Got it, sir. Yes,
no
sir.
problem. And please do ask questions. The more questions you have, the more you are learning, the more we are progressing. Okay, so yes, so agile versus traditional model, we have understand this thing. There are a couple of points I have discussed this thing in terms of agile is a adaptive software development methods where you try to work with the client in a collaborative, flexible way. It's a predictive method entirely depend on the requirement analysis and planning. So if the requirements change, the agile project management thought process can change invariably. And then we have adaptive approach in the sense you work with the client on day-to-day basis, like you have a scrum call on almost a daily for 15 minutes where we try to adapt to the changes given to us. And that's how you are flexible, you are working as per the client's need. Then there is a customer interaction, and this is the backbone of agile where you talk to the client on almost daily basis. The product owner guides the project team on a progressive manner, hour after hour, day after day, progressively on a given thought process and on a daily basis. And then we have in terms of comparison between it's a sequential model. In terms of waterfall, agile is an iterative model. In agile, if you have the requirements completely defined, then you can start with design. You can't go back, or you have to start the project again in terms of a second iteration of a product, second iteration of a second release of software, and so on and so forth. In agile, we do keep churning out. We do keep checking with the customer. Hey, whatever we are deliver, is it according to your thought process? Customer says yes, no. If no, then what are the gaps? We'll address those gaps. Then again we start a new iteration. So slowly, steadily, what you can say, a small step to reach the success. And that's how the agile has been adopted. Again, what I would really suggest, try to build a script on how to how you can explain the differences between waterfall and agile. This is a frequently asked questions. Okay, again, in agile you have sprint after sprint. In agile we worked on a mindset, value, principle, and practices, and this is how progressively you adopt a better project management approach in agile. SDLC is just a guidance. You can improve it as per your needs. You can customize the agile as per your need. But as far as waterfall goes, it's a standard predefined process. So there's a least flexibility in that. Okay, try to understand these. And then we have discussed about the agile manifesto values. We normally prefer interactions and individuals over the process and tools. We normally try to build a working software than comprehensive documentation. We normally work with customer collaboration than contract negotiation. We respond to change, we are flexible than following a plan as we do in a waterfall. Okay, I'm going to share this slide with you, and this is one of the most important picture of an agile scrum project management methodology. Here we have defined all the artifacts in the sense the documents we create, the plans we create to execute the agile scrum project management methodology, the iterative from 1 week to 4 week sprint, the roles in terms of product owner, scrum master, development team, and so on and so forth. In agile, they don't recognize project manager, but yes, it's a kind of a contradicting question. Do you think project manager or a scrum master is better than one another? And let's not go into such intricacies because these are ongoing fights. But yes, project manager is required at the end of the day because he is responsible for the project progress. He is responsible for the success of the whole thing, right? So it's a management overview of having a nominee of them for Agile Scrum execution, and that's what we normally referred as a project manager. Again, depending upon your thought process, you can explain better. Okay, and then we have ceremonies like daily Scrum meet, which is normally also referred as a stand-up meet, which is a 15-minute meet at the start of day or wherever everybody is present. You normally review something like what are the challenges, what are the obstacles, how we did it yesterday, how we can do better, and so on and so forth. Then we have a sprint planning ceremony where we plan the sprint across the number of requirements called product backlog, increment 1, 2, 3. We choose 1, 2, 4 and start development in terms of the sprint, anything between 1 to 4 weeks. The development team can be of 3 members to 9 members. These are again thumb rules. And then we normally, whenever the sprint gets completed, we normally update the sprint background chart, how many requirements are complete, how many requirements are to be completed, and so on and so forth. And then we move to the sprint review meeting, which is another ceremony. And there is a sprint retrospective ceremony. Sprint review is basically reviewing whatever we have achieved. How is the client feedback? Is the increment can be marked as a complete or closed? Then we have a sprint retrospective where we will check how we can improve or how we can do the things better in a next sprint, and so on and so forth. So these are normally 5 ceremonies, 3 scrum roles, and 5 different artifacts we create in terms of Scrum, Agile Sprint Progressive Project Management methodology. So this is how we normally try to be a flexible project manager, try to be collaborative project manager, and these are basically trying to adopt or trying to accept the best practices among our SDLC, among our project management methodology. Now the homework is, please answer a question, how the knowledge area relates to the project management methodology. We'll discuss that in our next session, that is on Tuesday, 9:30 p.m. EST. Okay, please try to build a script and try to answer this question. This is again, asked in good number of interviews. But
so can you put that question on the group?
yeah, I'll put that, ma'am.
Okay.
I normally, share the minutes of meeting in terms of a paragraph saying this is what we've discussed and this is what the homework is. So don't worry on that part. Okay, please give your email ID in your this thing WhatsApp group so that I can share these recording sheets with you as well. Okay, chalo. Any questions so far as of now?
No, sir.
We are good, right?
I
Okay,
think
so
we're
let me
good.
wrap this session and let's meet on day after. No, not day after. We are meeting on 24th, right? So 24th of January at 9:30 p.m. EST. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot for your timing. Have a great weekend. Bye bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you,
Bye.
sir.
Thank you.
Bye.